Hey everybody, Chris Schooker with Digital Horizons here. Today I wanted to talk to you about networking equipment and how we set up networks for our clients' homes and businesses. In your, let's say your house, for example, in your traditional home, you're going to have a modem that is going to be provided by the service provider, and that will bring the service into your home. And then you might go into something like this, which is just a basic wireless router. So you've got the connections on the back, and this takes the service from your modem and then sends basically a network connection to all of your wired devices, and then a wireless signal emanates from these. These are okay depending on the size of the home that you have, but because they're often not placed in advantageous locations, the signal that emanates from these, the wireless signal, is often not strong enough to cover the whole space. And so that's where we get into focusing on using separate devices rather than an all-in-one unit. So when we go into separate devices, we start off with a separate router. So this is going to have the same number of connections in the back, or a very similar number. But the difference with this is there's no wireless being broadcast from this. And the reason for that is we then pair it with what's referred to as a wireless access point, or a WAP. Now, the benefit to using wireless access points rather than a single centralized wireless device is we can place these in the room that you need signal the most. And oftentimes there will be multiples of these. So if you have a 3 or 4 or 5 or even larger 3 or 4, 5,000 square foot home or larger, you might end up with 2, 3 or 4 or 5 of these depending on the size of the home. The type of the home, the construction of the home, the materials to the walls, all of that will impact the performance of these or even your wireless router. Our general rule of thumb is we like to use these one for every 1,500 square feet. Sometimes that's less based on the materials that's used in the home. This is a ceiling mounted version, so I'm holding it this way just for example, but this would actually get attached to your ceiling. And they can be painted, although we try to avoid doing that because it can prevent the signal slightly from emanating from within it. But we can place these in a closet, these can go in a pantry, but in preference we like to have them out in the open because they work the best, and they'll be just placed strategically throughout your home or your business to provide ample wireless coverage. So in addition to the router and the access point, similar to this guy, this is providing network ports on the back. This is the original wireless router we were talking about. So when we get into working with separate devices, we have the router that handles the primary routing, if you will, the wireless access point that provides your wireless coverage for your mobile devices, your tablets, your laptops, and then we use separate switches for handling all of the network connections for all of the wired devices in your home. And the way we set up networks is we prioritize wiring as many devices as possible, so that when wireless devices are present, the amount of bandwidth, there's maximum amounts of bandwidth available for those devices to ensure they have top level performance. As a couple outlier items to some of the networking that we do, we have devices like this, which we will use. Actually looks very similar to our access point here, and it serves a very similar purpose. But this is one of a pair of devices that would be used to bridge buildings together. So for example, if you have a primary residence and a guest house or a carriage house or a garage that's several hundred feet to even miles away, we'll use these, one on the primary building and then one on the secondary building as a receive and transmit pair to bridge the buildings together. Wiring buildings together with standard network wiring has a distance limitation of 100 meters. You can use fiber optic wiring to go beyond that, but sometimes that can be cost prohibitive, and this is a really, really good solution. Again, these can be painted, but again, it does attenuate the signal or reduce the effectiveness of it, so we like to keep them unpainted as possible. And then the last part of our networks is a device that's used more as a a proactive measure. If there is an issue with your device connecting to the internet, it can be caused by any of these things not working in an optimal fashion. Either they've failed, there's some sort of issue that's preventing them from working properly, and so oftentimes the way to fix that is to power cycle something or turn it off and turn it back on. And so we use these really cool devices. This is a basic surge protector, but it is one that we refer to as a smart surge protector, and it actually connects to your network. And the coolest part about this device is it is self-healing, meaning if your modem, for example, locks up, this device is regularly trying to connect to websites like Google and Apple, and if it can't do that, we program them to turn off these outlets, which is where your modem and your router might be connected to. So when there is an issue with not being able to connect on your iPhone or your wired internet, your computer that's on the network, it will try and power cycle potentially problematic devices and perform self-healing. We can also schedule power cycling as well. So for every Sunday morning at 3 a.m. we reboot the modem, and it's just a really, really neat device that when you have an internet problem, it's often related to the service provider's modem or a router or something like that, and this can take care of it. So just to recap, we try to avoid using these all-in-one units because when you're trying to do something very specific, it is best to use separate devices that are focused on the things that they do best. And so while this might work in a lot of homes, the best approach, regardless of size, is to use a separate router, separate access points that come in various different shapes and sizes, and an appropriate sized network switch to handle your network needs. If you have any questions about these services, feel free to give us a call at 218-330-4140 or visit our website at digitalhorizonsmn.com.